Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and we are bringing you another review for the Oscar season. I'm not used to doing the intros. It's me, George, tonight, joined by Christopher. How are you, Chris?
Yeah, I'm not doing too bad. Throat's still a little bit dicky from last time, but feeling a lot better. And yeah, we're just sort of like clawing our way through the last few Best Picture nominations for the 90th Academy Awards right now. So this one's been one a long time in the making. I think you said actually that yesterday was the 1 year anniversary of this movie. So going back all the way to February from last year, it just purely dipped under the radar for us. We watch a lot of movies, we have a lot to review, so I'm sure we just glossed over it. In all honesty, didn't expect it to get as much praise as it's getting right now, like Best Picture and everything like that. So it's pretty huge right now.
And if there's a better way to talk about three white boys avoiding reviewing a film, then Get Out's the perfect one for that. Yeah, so it's come out a year ago. It's up for 5 awards: Best Film, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Original Screenplay. That is 5, yep. So, yeah, we're a week away from the Oscars. I guess that's the main thing. We're clawing through it. And I don't really know how to talk about Get Out because everyone's, I assume, has seen it. But I guess the big thing is that it is Jordan Peele's directorial debut because he did a lot of comedy over the last few years, more or less the sort of American comedy. For anyone that watches Brooklyn Nine-Nine, he is, I think, engaged and has a kid with one of the leads, and he worked on a couple of episodes of that as well. So he's not got a horror background, which Get Out apparently is. I don't think it's a horror film, do you?
No, I'd say it's more psychological thriller, maybe. Definitely, I'd say it's. I was going to use a genre name there, and then realised the irony as such. So I'm going to avoid saying that. Maybe people can work it out. It is listed as a horror film. I'd say psychological thriller. There are elements of comedy in there because I remember when the trailer came out, and I thought it was an all-out comedy when I saw the trailer, and there definitely are hints of that. And I think that was absolutely intentional from the director and everyone involved with it because it is very tongue-in-cheek. The idea itself is very out there and kind of weird and wacky and ridiculous, but they make it an entertaining movie and it works for the movie.
Yeah, and I think when you go back to the Golden Globes from this year as well, it was up for best musical or comedies, and there was a bit of bravado. Every year they do it to a film, don't they, where there's a couple that they chuck into comedy, which really isn't. And Jordan Peele said that about I didn't direct a comedy, but there are moments that are funny, and they are intentionally funny, but there are obviously also some like it's more psychological, I think, this one. And I don't know really how to phrase going into it. Just to go the story. There's a basic story that the lead character, the name I've forgotten, I did see this like a month ago, played amazingly by Daniel
Kaluuya,
who just won best E Rising BAFTA, which he thoroughly deserved. And he's in Black Panther. He is in a relationship with a white girl, and he goes to their parents' house for the weekend for like a do, and obviously it's full of rich white people, and then basically things start to happen, putting it mildly, in the spoiler-free section, I guess we can say. Yeah, it's very. I don't really know how to go into it. I mean, more or less characters.
Yeah, no, I'd say where the strength of this movie is sort of the uneasy tone that sort of like coasts throughout the movie, because it starts off, obviously, if you are viewing it as a horror film, starts off with that sense of equilibrium, like everything's okay. But as they get towards the destination, you pick up on like these. And with the main character as well, like you're watching the movie almost through the main character's eyes. He's picking up on these little things, like an aside, something someone will say in passing, or the way someone will look at him, and he's picking up on all these little things, and he just chalks it up to sort of like, you know, old white person racism towards him. And then that kind of snowballs, and then it gets very, very strange and weird and horrific. Almost gets sort of like a Kubrick movie in some moments, honestly, like with the weird cult thing that goes. I don't want to go too much into it, but no, I really liked the tone they kept with it, and there are moments of comedy, and I think that the director did make that balance very effectively, because it could have tended either way. You could have played it as an all-out horror, you could have played it as an all-out comedy, and I think the tone that he struck with it is why it's hit a chord with so many people.
Yeah, and it is unique. It's creepy in the sense it's psychological. I mean, the first time I saw it, it's had so much hype over the last year that, you know, get around to in January, I thought it was. I only watched it when it got its Oscar nominations, I won't lie, but I actually thought it was fine, and I will say that I loved the first hour, but the last half hour I just thought was so predictable and didn't wasn't any better than that first hour. We'll go into that in the spoiler section, I guess, but I don't know where I stand with the film because I like it, but I didn't love it, and I can understand why it's up for certain awards, but I don't understand why it's up for all of them. I think Best Actor it's thoroughly deserved. Best Original Screenplay. But I guess when it comes to the Oscars, there's always reasons why people nominate films, and they do get 10. And I think in terms of cultural significance, this is huge. I will say that Black Panther has already overshadowed it, but that would, as it's a Marvel blockbuster superhero film. So in a year's time, we could be having another conversation about that. But I just don't know where I stand, because I mean, everyone knows I don't like horror films, so I don't get around to much because I don't get scared easily. I think that's the best way of saying it without sounding arrogant. And this isn't a film where they don't have any scares. There's one or two creepy moments, but it's just very bog standard. And I just think it's down to the script, and I think that's where really a lot of the praise is coming from through the script performances.
Well, I think the idea itself is very unique, and I think that's what its driving force is really as a movie in its own right. I kind of agree with you. I thought it was a very entertaining movie. I had a good time watching it. I don't know if I'd rush back and watch it anytime soon, and I don't know if I'd really qualify it as a Best Picture. If you're looking at sort of like other horror comedies or anything like that, you could argue, why wasn't Cabin in the Woods nominated for Best Picture? Because that has elements of, I'd say that's probably more comedic than this movie is, but it still struck a balance with its movie. As it is, no, I did enjoy the movie. I did laugh a few times, and it did sort of, I wanted to see where the story was going. You're right, though, it does hit that last act, and it does become very predictable in its own genre. But I think the movie is fine. Maybe, would you say this is the most unique pick out of all the Best Pictures this year? Well, I guess like Shape of Water, but I mean that's sort of like got a lot going, like production design and costume and everything like that. So you'd expect it to probably get something.
Yeah, I think this is the one where people thought it could get nominated, and if it got nominated, that was the great thing. Whereas this, like, you expected Dunkirk, Three Billboards, the other ones, but I think this was the surprising one because it was right for it for a couple of things. I just think it's all about going back to a year ago. No one could have seen this coming at all.
Yeah.
So there's something quite, I don't want to say likable because that's the word, but there's something kind of, it's almost like that kind of, not a Hollywood moment because that sounds horrible, but there's something that no one would have expected. You know what I mean? Like the surprise, I guess it's the surprise nomination that you kind of half expected but didn't. But if you look at the list of all the films, you've got Call Me By Your Name, Darkest Hour, Dunkirk, Get Out, Lady Bird, Phantom Thread, The Post, Shape of Water, Three Billboards. In all honesty, 7 or 8 of these you'd expect to be up there straight away. Dunkirk, I mean, we knew it was going to get nominated straight away, but if you said a year or two ago, like a war film about Dunkirk, you wouldn't have maybe thought it because the Americans of the Academy Awards, well, sorry, the Oscars love America, whatever. But because it's Nolan and it came out as a hit, you understood they're going for everything. So I think Get Out is really the one where a year ago it would have been a humongous surprise, but today it's not been a surprise given how it's been received over the last year and the other awards it's been picking up.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, can you remember how many screenings this got when it came out originally? Because I don't think my screening did it all that much, and I think that's why I had to give it a miss.
With us over here, it didn't get much of a release over in England. In America, it's worldwide, it's got 250 mil off a 4 mil budget, which is humongous, and it came out in February last America. And then in England, I'm honestly convinced we got it quite late, a bit like John Wick, that we literally got it a month or two later. I think we got it in April, in all honesty, March, April time, and that would have been at the same time as Logan and Kong, Fate of the Furious, Beauty and the Beast. I would need to check actually, but it's something that it definitely went into the radar, and not many people I know have seen it either. That's one of the other things.
I know I could see this movie before all the Oscar hype. Like I could see this movie eventually becoming like a little bit of a cult hit, maybe. It definitely had a fan base there. It had the comedy element to it, and I could see a lot of people gravitating towards it like that. But now that it's got like, you know, touting it for BAFTAs and you've got the Oscars coming up and everything like that, I don't know if that's going to transform the film into something that maybe it wasn't originally intended to be. Like, I don't know when this director did this movie if he thought like, oh yeah, this is going to get like Best Picture at the Oscars nominated, because that's a huge thing. Even if it doesn't win, which it won't win, but just to be in that category with those movies, Best Picture. And don't get me wrong, we see some absolutely terrible films in the Best Picture thing. We might have a few this week actually that we still need to review. But I don't know. I don't know if that whole Oscar thing has sort of like changed and molded this film into perhaps something that it wasn't originally meant to be.
I think looking down the line, this will get the recognition of being the Oscar film, but I think it's more or less just the outright success of this film, which almost like Blair Witch, where it had like no budget and it was just a humongous hit. I don't know if that got nominated for Best Film in the Oscars. Probably not. Probably some kind of awards, but I think with Jordan Peele, this was his first ever film. He's got a background in comedy. He just probably wanted it to be decent. And I mean, we could go research. He's probably got loads of quotes everywhere, but from what I've seen, he's very humble with it. And I think the main thing is that his second film's been greenlit and he's going to start shooting into this year. So in the sense that if this can progress his career, then to me, that's great. But I do think the Oscars is over pushing it. I know this is sounding more like a rant now. But I just think it was more of the cultural success, and it did basically become a meme, especially with the whole guy in the straw hat.
Yeah.
Which is, he looks like Thierry Henry, if anyone knows anything about football.
I guess this is a really hard review to talk about, actually. Not down to the fact that the last time I watched this movie, I was going to try and rewatch it today. Didn't get the chance to do it, so I'm trying to remember this movie back from like December or before then when last I watched it. The last thing I guess I'll say before we get into spoilers, favorite character or whatnot, it had to be the character of Rod, who's the main character, Chris's friend. He has this line. He reminded me a little bit of Anthony Anderson's character from the first Transformers movie. A little bit. Like, he comes between the point where he might stray into like annoying. He's definitely the main focal point of the comic relief in this movie, but I think his character worked, and I think he's the main sort of like levity focus of this movie. I really liked his character.
Yeah, I think I liked the lead character the most. Daniel, of course, Daniel Kaluuya. Sorry, it's because my mouse ran out of charge, so I can't scroll back up on Wikipedia. He was definitely my favorite character, which is good for a sort of psychological thriller, because if you're not with the protagonist, then the film's not going to work for you outright. I did love him as well. He reminded me of someone watching a horror film, like the person shouting at the screen, but like you said, he's not too annoying. I think he works perfectly for the film, and I like his arc at the end where he's like, "I'm the T, I'm the fucking A." Which, you know, I thought it was great, because it was a nice gag that they don't do anything, they sit there all day, when really he's going to solve the whole mystery. And he's got one of my favorite scenes from the film as well.
TS motherfucking A.
That's the one.
Yeah, that's my favorite line too.
Personally, I like the entire cast.
No, I think everyone plays their roles, you know, well to the letter. I don't know if this sort of like speaks volumes about this review now, because I'm really struggling to talk about this movie, and I don't know if that is like a commentary on the film itself. Like, I enjoyed it, but there's just really not much to talk about it.
I think you're right in the sense it's just very, if you named each character as A, B, and C, and you take the bog standard psychological thriller aspect. I mean, they could rename Shining to Get Out, and it's about a woman trying to get out of a giant mansion with Jack Nicholson coming for her. It's the genre, but I think that's one of the other reasons why this has been such a big deal at the Oscars, because you don't get genre films nominated. That's the way I've seen some of it, and the other person that spoke about it, they've said, you know, well, it's been nominated because it's like the first horror film in however long to do it.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Like, I've been trying to rack my brain. I can't remember a single. If you are going to qualify this as a horror film as it is, I can't remember another horror film the last time it was nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. Like, I don't know if Exorcist was, but then that got banned, and I know it had a lot of hate against it, so it probably wouldn't.
Did The Shining? I've got no idea.
No, I don't think it did. I think that was completely overlooked. And that was Kubrick. So
it's not a genre I follow much, and we don't really. Just Tate does them, doesn't he? No, Tate doesn't do horror films either, no.
I'm the only guy. It used to be me and Tom who were the horror guys. I think it's just the horror guy now. But no, I mean, if anyone knows, like, comment below if there's a horror film that we've completely overlooked that was nominated. Let us know. But I can't think of any off the top of my head.
No, and it's like comic films. They're in conversations, but they're nowhere near that list. Very happy it didn't get nominated just for being a box office hit. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
Because that was very, very, very average. But I think with this film, it's hard to talk about because it's the same plot as every other, but this is done so well and so differently to most of the films, and I feel that that's the main thing going for it.
Yeah, it's got that unique, quirky spin to it on the premise alone, which kind of it's something different. I think it challenges the expectations a little bit, but when it circles around to the end, it kind of does pander to those same kind of genre tropes of a horror ending.
Yeah, it's like an original take on a used genre, and I think that works as spoiler free as I can say. But I will say my favorite thing about the film is the performances.
Yeah, I agree. I loved everyone in this film. I don't really have much to say about their performances though. I thought is it Daniel Kaluuya? Why are we having such a hard time remembering this guy's name? His name's Dan.
I mean, I can tell you David Oyelowo perfectly, Chiwetel Ejiofor, but I think Daniel. I mean, he has just won Rising Star, and I think he will be in a lot of films now with this. And if anyone should look at his speech. He was so humble, and he's so not your bog standard sort of like recipient of an award. That I think that makes him so much more likable.
Well, not to just make this a race thing, but if you look at John Boyega as well, like he did Attack the Block. Now he's in Star Wars. He's in Pacific Rim. He's doing more of these big movies now. And we're kind of seeing the same thing as well with Daniel Kaluuya. Now he's in Black Panther. Like, what's he going to be in next? It's going to be something big.
True story. John Boyega was originally cast in Black Panther as the character Daniel Kaluuya played. Really? But because of conflicts with Last Jedi filming, he had to leave the project, and that's how he got brought in.
Oh, okay.
So, but I think those two guys are friends outside of.
Yeah, I can imagine they would be.
Because I think John Boyega was at the premiere with him as well.
Because didn't John Boyega as well win that Rising Star?
Yeah, he won it in just after Force Awakens came out. Yeah. Last year, who won it last year? Tom Holland.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Definitely.
They all end up at Disney.
It's the public vote, isn't it? It's the popular. Like, which one was in Marvel or Star Wars? You decide. Although he.
Oh, go on. Sorry.
I'd say he did beat Timothy Chalamet.
Should we move into spoilers?
Yeah, I was going to say
we're struggling a bit, aren't we? Yeah.
Spoilers. So he escapes and kills everyone.
I did actually find out until like a month ago they did like a bunch of alternate endings. I haven't watched them. I think they're on the Blu-ray. I think they're on the DVD or whatever. And I'm actually not sure how many alternate endings there are. I think there's probably one major one that was filmed, and I know the directors talked about a bunch before. I'm glad that it ends on a happy note. When I was watching it, I did get oddly invested in like everything that was going on in the character. Even though the ending is kind of stereotypical, I was kind of there with the character wanting to get away. Because so many horror films just kill the lead at the end or something bad happens, and it's like you kind of do want that good ending sometimes. Favorite line in the movie, which we've talked about, where his mate shows up at the last minute and gets him off at the last second. But the original ending was very different. It was the ending that I thought they'd go with when I was watching it, where the police show up, see that he's killed his girlfriend, they arrest him. And I think the director did it as a kind of, this is sort of like the reality of, racial, prejudice when it comes to the judicial system. I think both endings would have worked, but one is a lot more happy than the other one. So I'm glad they went with the one that they did.
Yeah, I think it suits the film better and the characters, because you miss out on not just a great line, but it kind of closes both story arcs, because if his friend doesn't turn up at the end, then you're kind of wondering, well, what was the point of his character all along? What's the point of him doing the investigation? So I do like the ending they went with. It's just the bit that lost him is the last 40 minutes. As soon as he gets put downstairs and it's going to be the operation and whatnot, when he just started getting up and killing them, it just felt like it felt like, okay, I've seen this before. Like, they've said something at the start of the film, like, I hate deers. They're going to be the death of me. And he gets impaled by a deer.
Yeah.
The other one, oh yeah, I can put you in a headlock. And he can kill him in a headlock or something.
I think so.
There's the whole with George Lucas. It's like poetry. It rhymes for each character arc, and I don't know how common that is with horror films, but to me, it took something away from the ending. Like, it's great that he did get out and everything, but I don't know. That's me thinking.
No, I agree. There's ways you can do it more subtly, like Edgar Wright, for example. Baby Driver comes to mind. There's loads of little things he throws. I think it's not just that movie. I think it's all of his movies. There's little things he throws in that get a call back or like a very subtle reference, but again, they're done subtly, whereas I think that the writing probably wasn't up to scratch for this. This is just me talking. I mean, it's nominated for screenplay, so what the hell do I know?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the screenplay was great, and especially the dialogue and how they're acting with everyone.
There's just better ways to do it, isn't there? Really, like
it's hard to fault something because it's literally like one or two nitpicks. But I would say the twist in the middle is probably one of the best twists I've seen in a long time, where the girlfriend actually been with everyone else. I thought the build up to that was you knew something weird was going to happen, and you thought, oh, okay, this is going to be another boring horror thing. But when it hits you, even I was like, oh Jesus Christ, like that is something mentally disturbed.
That was the tensest moment for me. It kind of resorts to that whole like gunfire. She essentially becomes a Terminator at the end, which I didn't really like. But that moment where he's looking at the photos and he knows that, like the title, he's just got to get out of that house somewhere. And it's the desperation where he says, like, give me the keys, and she's not giving him the keys. And I really liked that. I think if it had maintained, I don't know how you could have worked that into a finale, though, all the way through. I think you did need something what they did go with in the end of the film, because I don't think you could have maintained that kind of tension in this kind of movie. But performance-wise, that was probably his strongest moment, in my opinion.
Performance-wise is the crying scene for me.
Oh, in the hypnotism.
The first one where, you know, she talks about the story with his mum, the crazy tea lady. That's a pretty good scene.
I think Tate said, I think, if I'm going to give his 2 cents on this review, he says, you'll never drink tea the same way again.
I don't like tea, so I'm right.
I kind of agree. So you got like the whole, like, you know,
stirring. It's the weird scraping
cool image. That probably is, if you're going to go with like an iconic shot from this film, it would be that crying shot of him in the chair. Yeah,
and I think that's the entire marketing campaign as well, isn't it? It's the perfect, and it's the best scene for him in terms of performance. Aside from them, I don't really have anything else to say. I did like the fact that it was the person from 3 Billboards. The brother was at 3 Billboards who was Red, who was so casually put into his place by Sam Rockwell. I think that's one sort free way of putting it. It was nice to see him. I think he's cropped up in, I can't remember if it's him or someone else, but there's an actor this year that's been put in 3 best films nominated for Best Picture. And he's one of, I think he's in 2, which is Get Out and 3 Billboards, or the third. There's another actor who was either put in 3 or 2 for this year, and I think it's like the second every time it's happened. It's always little weird stats like that, but it's not a bad year. I think Donald Gleason was close once. I think he was in 2, but then he had Star Wars as well, so you can't really complain about that too.
Yeah, I'm in all honesty, I'm really struggling to think of anything else to say. Should we just go to overall opinions? I think we've pretty much covered everything we can with this one, haven't we?
I'd say Get Out is a sort of a fresh psychological thriller. If you don't watch the genre much, then I would actually say watch it. Like me, it's kind of surprising in the middle, a little bit cliched, but I thought it did a very good job, and it's made me want to see more from Jordan Peele in the future. As well as the cast, I'll be looking at them and see what happens in the future with them. I see what's up for several awards, and I can understand it being up for some of them. But like I said earlier, it's not one I think that should be up for the top prize. But nonetheless, it's still a film worthy of recognition, whether that's the Oscars or through sort of pop culture in the future. Because I think this will be a film where people are talking about for years to come.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm pretty much bang on with you on this one. It's an entertaining watch. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely check it out. It is entertaining for what it is. Whether or not it deserves the moniker of Best Picture is to be debated. I don't know when I'm going to go back and watch this movie again. If there's a group of friends over and they say like, "Oh, I haven't seen this one," if they're looking for some kind of horror film or psychological thriller, I'd probably definitely recommend this one though. As it is, it's just fine. But I know that this film has hit a lot of people. They absolutely love this film. And if you're going with the whole kind of which is the more watchable and easy sit of a white guilt movie, this or Detroit, probably put this one on because I think Detroit's a bit more hard-hitting. Although that is a movie that should have got Best Picture. Yeah,
Detroit is a film that should have been up for Best Picture. Should have won.
Yeah,
and been up for Best Supporting Actor. As much as I love Sam Rockwell, that should have gone to Will Poulter, also playing a racist cop. Similar to the alternate ending is one way of putting it. That's what I was thinking when we were talking about earlier. But I think Detroit is a film that came out at the wrong time of year. They brought out the Oscar bait film in August, which was the worst season I've ever seen. That
then
should have
again,
been out
this came out
February. Very good time to bring a film out.
Yeah.
It was a hit blockbuster and it's had the legacy, but no one saw Detroit because it came out in. I think there was like 3 blockbusters out.
Yeah.
That had come out in November. We would have had a different story, I think, with that film. But don't get me wrong, it doesn't take anything away from Gal. Just as you said, your white guilt films.
I think we've said everything we can on this one, so that'll do it for our review on Get Out. Be sure to comment, subscribe, let us know what you thought of this movie. Did you like it? Didn't you like it? What do you think this is going to take away any awards at the Oscars? Let us know. Speaking of which, the Oscars, I believe, is next week, isn't it? Is it next Sunday?
Next Sunday.
So we'll have times and dates and everything like that with a time difference between the US and here. For our Oscars live stream, we're hopefully going to have Tate on for that. He says that he thinks he's going to be able to do that, so it should be all 3 of us as usual. We're going to be doing a live stream throughout the night. You're going to be getting our reactions to all the awards. We're going to be talking movies. It's going to be a lot of fun, so please come to that. And also, in conjunction with that, make sure you get your Oscar predictions into us. I don't believe we've had any yet. Unfortunately, I'm going to be sharing that post out a bunch of times this week. Essentially, just bring up the list of all the Oscar predictions and give us your first and second picks for what you think is going to win for each category. Send that into our Facebook, and whoever gets the most points on the night, whoever gets the most correct, will get a chance to be in one of our future episodes on the channel. So we did that last year, and it was actually a big success. We had we had someone on one of our Battle of the Brackets episodes, and that was a lot of fun. We'd like to do the same again this time. In terms of videos this week, I think more or less it's just going to be the rest of the Oscar films we haven't touched yet. So I know we'll have reviews for everyone's favorite Phantom Thread, which we've been putting off for a long time. We're going to be getting on that this week. We're going to have Lady Bird and Call Me By Your Name, and they're the final 3 movies that will cover all the Best Picture films. If you've missed any of our other Best Picture films, we have got a playlist on our channel with all our previous reviews on, so check those out. And I think that's pretty much everything covered for the foreseeable future. Links to our social media, Facebook and Twitter, in the description down below. Make sure you check those out this week for times and everything like that. That'll do it from us. And until the next video, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.